You've probably seen the old newsreels, magnificent B-17 flying fortresses, soaring through the sky, seemingly invincible. They were the symbol of American air power, a promise of victory delivered from the clouds. But behind this heroic image lies a brutal, often untold story. The truth is, the sky over Europe was one of the most dangerous places in the world, and for the young men flying these missions, survival was anything but guaranteed. Today, we pulling back the curtain on the myth of the invincible flying fortress to reveal the harrowing reality faced by B-17 crews. Let's start with the numbers, because they paint a truly staggering picture. The tour of duty for an 8th Air Force bomber crew was set at 25 missions. Sounds achievable, right? Wrong. A shocking 73% of crew members never completed their tour. Think about that for a moment. Nearly 3/4 of the men who climbed into those bombers never made it to their final mission. In the particularly brutal year of 1943, the average lifespan of a B-17 crew was just 11 missions. They were sent into combat knowing the odds were overwhelmingly stacked against them. The planes themselves didn't fare much better. The average B-17 was shot down after only 14 combat missions. For every 3 bombers that were destroyed, only one managed to complete its 25-mission tour. The skies were a graveyard of aluminum and steel, so what was causing this incredible carnage? It wasn't just enemy fighters. In 1943, the #1 killer of B-17s was something called flak, which is short for German anti-aircraft artillery. Flak accounted for a staggering 68% of B-17 losses. A single flak shell would explode into about 1,500 red-hot steel fragments, shredding anything within a 20-yard radius. The bombers had to fly straight and level on their final bomb run, making them predictable, easy targets for the gunners on the ground below. They described the sky as being so thick with black puffs of smoke from flak bursts that you could almost walk on them. Inside the plane, the sound was deafening, a constant rain of shrapnel tearing through the fuselage like a hailstorm on a tin roof. But the enemy wasn't just on the outside. The environment inside the B-17 was just as hostile. At their cruising altitude of 25,000 feet, the temperature outside could plummet to 50 degrees below zero. The bombers were unpressurized and barely heated. The crew wore electrically heated suits, but these were notoriously unreliable. If a suit failed, severe frostbite could set in within minutes. Exposed skin would freeze instantly to any metal surface. In the first year of the air war, more crewmen were taken out of action by frostbite than by combat injuries. It was a constant battle against both the enemy and the elements. And then there were the German fighters. The Luftwaffe quickly learned that the B-17, despite its name and its many machine guns, had a critical weakness. The nose of the bomber was relatively unarmored and its forward-facing guns had limited range of motion. So German pilots developed a terrifyingly effective tactic, the head-on attack. They would fly directly at the bomber formation, guns blazing, passing through in a matter of seconds. For the pilots and bombardiers in the nose, it was an absolutely nightmarish experience, watching enemy fighters grow from a speck to a full-blown cannon-firing terror in an instant. Every position in the 10-man crew had its own unique horrors, but none was more feared than the ball turret. This was a cramped, plexiglass sphere slung beneath the belly of the plane, where a gunner lay curled up in a fetal position for hours on end. It offered the best view, but it was also the most vulnerable spot. If the plane's electrical system failed, the gunner could be trapped inside. If the landing gear was damaged and the plane had to belly land, the ball turret was the first thing to be crushed on impact. It was a claustrophobic, isolated, and incredibly dangerous job. So, what happened if your plane was shot down? The survival rates were grim. For every 10 men who bailed out of a stricken bomber, 7 died. The 3 who survived often faced a new ordeal, becoming prisoners of war. The fall itself was perilous, with the risk of being hit by debris, shot by fighters, or having your parachute fail. For the 8th Air Force as a whole, the casualty numbers are beyond belief. A total of 26,000 airmen were killed in action. To put that in perspective, that's more combat deaths than the entire United States Marine Corps suffered in the Pacific Theater during the whole war. The friendly skies were anything, but even for those who survived the missions, the war wasn't over. The constant stress, the terror, and the loss of comrades took a severe psychological toll. They called it combat fatigue back then. Today, we know it as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. This mental breakdown caused more crews to be grounded than German fighters did. Men would suffer from uncontrollable tremors, nightmares, and complete emotional collapse. They had seen too much, lost too many friends, and their minds simply couldn't take any more. The Air Force struggled to understand and treat it, often mistaking it for cowardice. But it was a genuine and debilitating wound of war. After all this sacrifice, all this loss, was it worth it? That's a question historians still debate. The goal of the strategic bombing campaign was to cripple Germany's war industry and break the morale of its people. But the data is complex. In fact, during the periods of the most intense Allied bombing, German war production paradoxically went up. They became incredibly adept at dispersing their factories and rebuilding quickly. While the bombing campaign undoubtedly diverted huge resources from the front lines and played a role in the eventual Allied victory, its effectiveness remains a controversial topic. The story of the B-17 crews is a powerful reminder that war is never as clean or heroic as it's portrayed in the movies. It's a story of incredible courage in the face of impossible odds. These were ordinary young men, farm boys, mechanics, students asked to do something extraordinary day after day. They flew into the heart of hell, knowing they probably wouldn't come back. So the next time you see that iconic image of a flying fortress, remember the men inside. Remember their fear, their sacrifice, and the brutal truth of the air war they fought. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what piece of hidden history you'd like us to explore next. Until then, stay curious.